Hi, everybody. It's Rachel Rose from Workshop Muse, and here we've got our next installment of The Artful Soul, inspiration and big ideas for healing, reflection, and learning through the arts. And oh, I'm so excited today. I've got somebody so wonderful, Sarah Coey, who is a Scottish artist, and you can see in her background, she is not afraid of color. You are like the queen of rainbows. Welcome, Sarah. We're so happy you're here.
I'm so excited to be here. This is so cool. What a cool thing to do with my afternoon.
Yeah, why not, right? Why not? Yeah, if we have this like whole internet thing where we can have a phone call, why wouldn't you call somebody around the world from where you are and just like have a conversation? I think we should be doing that more, right?
So I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I think that it's awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to give Sarah a bit of an introduction so you know, but then Sarah, of course, will kind of talk about it. But what I want to tell you today is that Sarah and I are going to talk about color. That's when we kind of went back and forth and we were like, what should we talk about? I was like, well, I think I should talk to you about color because I think maybe you're like the expert on color. So I put on my yellow sweater here today so that I was like, I was wearing black, and then I was like, I can't go talk about color and just wear black. That's silly. But yeah, let me just give you a little brief intro about Sarah so you can kind of learn a bit about her. So Sarah is a Scottish artist passionate about spreading happiness through wild, rainbow-tastic paint. Art has been her forever passion, her escape, her outlet to explore all the fun, magical, and dreamy experiences of life in one expressive brushstroke. A color lover from the beginning, she found herself painting in every spare moment and felt fizzy with happiness during the bursts of creativity. She wanted to cover the world in colorful paint and spread happiness through art, and this has always been her dream. So as you can see, Sarah's work is extremely bright and colorful. So Sarah, just like, let's talk about color. What do you want to say about color? Where could we start with that?
I know, it's such a big topic. As you can see, absolutely love color. I really don't have the ability to kind of rein myself in when it comes to using it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I start out and I think, oh, today maybe I'll do something with pastels. And before you know it, I've added in like a hot pink and I can't bring it back. It's just, there's so many different combinations and different colors to play with. Like, there's so much to explore.
Right. So my question is, have you always been like a rainbow color person? Like, has that always been where you've been in your life? Like, even as a child, were you always like making rainbows?
Yes. Absolutely.
I was going to guess that was the answer, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always loved color, and when I was at school, I was forever every color in the box. If I could paint with a rainbow, I was going to do it. If I could draw a rainbow, I would do it. When I was at high school and I was painting, I remember my art teacher being like, oh, Sarah, try and bring it back a little bit, and like, you don't need to use every color in every single painting. Right. And I just found that really strange because that was just the way I naturally wanted to work. And even now, when I look back at what I was making when I was 14, 15, 16, it's still the same expressions and colors, and it's just, I don't know, it must just be the way I like to create. So
you are, yeah. It's cool to think about that, like being with you from the start, right? So, because it's funny, you and I were just talking before we went on, we both have kids, right? Little kids. And so there's like this, you start to identify colors, name colors. And like my children, as they've gotten older, it's like, what's your favorite color, right? And there's like, almost as early as language, we start to kind of gravitate towards certain colors that we like. My son right now is obsessed with orange. Orange is his thing, right? And my older son really likes red. And what's been interesting is to see, my baby can't talk yet, but we'll see what happens. She's starting to show preferences with things, but like it's almost comes with language around what your color is. And there's people, I think, in this world who have always gravitated towards certain colors or certain palettes. And then there's people maybe like you who you're like, I'm just going to need the whole palette actually.
I will need one of them.
Change too, right? Like I think people can change with their gravitation towards color, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Like there are people that I know of, and I actually think of them in terms of colors. So I have a friend, and whenever I think of them, I just think of the color blue. Like it's their favorite thing. They wear a lot of it. That's the kind of thing that they naturally would go towards. And I have another one that wears like lots of like black and white, but lots of prints. And I don't know. So I think about these people in terms of color. I find it quite interesting that people do have very specific color favorites though, because I do not.
Because you don't, right?
My favorite color changes on a daily basis. It depends on my
is your wardrobe like, do you have like lots of colors you pull from for your wardrobe?
Oh my gosh, yes. I look like I look like I ran into the wardrobe and then ran back. I mean, I'm quite toned back today. Fluffy jumper. It has hearts. But yeah, I like all my colors. And anytime I see something bright and colorful, I'm like, ooh, I need that.
Yeah, hey, all the colors. It's interesting just when you're saying too that like people wearing colors, right? So it's like that's one of the simplest ways that we express ourselves is through our clothing, right? Mm-hmm. And when I think about, there's like the cliche where it's like, oh, I don't want that black sweater. I want that black sweater, right? Like people who like, I'm kind of one of those people like sometimes you look at your wardrobe and you're like, it's too much. Well, you maybe don't do this, but other people will look at their wardrobe and be like, I have one color, like, where's all the color, right? And then they'll go out and they'll say like, oh, I can't wear that color. It washes me out, or those sorts of things that I think like at like a deeper kind of like soul spiritual level that we are like, that's like part of the expression, right? Is that when we try on certain things, we can tell ourselves that it washes us out or it doesn't go, or it clashes with our hair or whatever. But really, I think it's about that it's not expressing what we need, right? And I think it's also interesting too to think that like colors hold different symbols in different cultures and religions and places across the world too, right? So we're like associating ourselves through color with like certain feelings or emotions or those sorts of things as well, right?
Oh, definitely. Like, for example, I never wear black. I find it like, one, I am basically like as white as Casper the Ghost. So, I mean, I do look like I look like a zombie or like one of those Victorian old ladies. Like it does wash me out. But also like, I don't feel happy when I wear it. I sort of sit there and I feel a bit glum and a bit down. And yeah, I think color has the power to influence how you feel. Mm-hmm. One thing I've noticed you were saying about your children is like children's clothes are so exciting. They are so much fun. And since I've started shopping for my wee boy, he's almost 2, like his wardrobe is so cool. And I was looking at it thinking, all these kids' clothes are amazing. And because I'm small, I've now figured out I can fit into some of them. So this is just like, it makes you more experimental. If he's got this really cool, fun wardrobe full of bright colors and, rainbow soles on his, the trainers, I just think, well, I want to get in on that. I don't want to be wearing, beige and brown, and I want to be dressing bright too.
It's actually interesting too, because what I would guess, this is my assumption based on like kind of my life and my experience, is that like, it'd be really interesting to watch to see when that changes, right? Like when it's not acceptable to like wear the full rainbow getup, right? Like, because you're right. I was walking my son to school the other day and I watched this little girl go by and I was like, man, she had like the unicorn sparkle stuff. And I was like, if we saw an adult wearing that now, we would be like, too much, right? And I think it kind of coincides with this thing we have where we're like trying to subjugate people. We're like, hey, tone it down. Like it's a little too much. It's like just, can you start to just dull certain parts of yourself? Because I think it's natural as children and what do we know about kids? They're like the most expressive, right? Like they're the most playful, the most imaginative, the most free. And I think color kind of holds hands with that, right?
Oh, definitely. I think it was so interesting what you were saying about, if you saw an adult wearing those clothes, you would just think it was a bit out of place. And I think that for me, anyway, my understanding of it is people think that when you wear, or if you express yourself in all these different colors, and, you clash them, you don't really mind if you've got like red and green and blue and pink all on at once. It's almost like they will take you less seriously. It's like if you're too serious and you're wearing all these colors, it doesn't work. So you can't be a lawyer and wearing a bright pink suit a la person, because you're not taken seriously. And I think there's something very much kind of there. If you're painting with all the colors, your art, for example, couldn't be as serious because you're not toning it back and you're not muting it. And do you know anything about blending? And what about all like the kind of in-between colors? It's a really strange one. And it's something I see quite a lot with my work.
Yeah.
It's like people take it less seriously because it's almost a bit childish.
Right.
Does that sound silly? Yeah. Like,
but at the same time, what I will say is, yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that. Like, I just had the vision of like a lawyer wearing like something, right? And it's like, no,
yeah.
we would just like, but wouldn't that be amazing if there was still like that level of expression? But it's interesting to think about like you saying like your work might be perceived as like childish or playful or whatever, right? But you have a huge Instagram following, right? Like you have like this crew of people that is like that resonates with them, right? Like so you must be speaking through, and what you're doing is you're speaking through color, right? Like that's like kind of your, like you're doing I see you've been doing like landscapes and kind of moving yourself in different places around like figurative or non-figurative or those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, I think when people are like scrolling through Instagram or see your art or whatever, it's like it's like, oh my gosh, look at all that color. Like I kind of want that. I kind of like that. Right. And so I think there's obviously something that is like, there's like a permission piece that's maybe coming with what your expression is and what your work is like.
Oh, definitely. I think it's so interesting because people seem to see all these bright colors and it just makes them feel happier and lighter, and maybe it's like a little bit of a holiday from the somber seriousness of their everyday life. So maybe they do have like a 9-to-5 job in an office and they have to wear like the grey suits and the white shirt and the tie, and it's a bit boring, and then they come home and go, oh, and it's like a little break. It's like this breath of fresh air. And I think what's interesting as well is like not a lot of people will work with so many colors and be able to marry them as well as you can do, because you do run the risk if you use every single color on every single piece that it would look samey, or that it would get muddy, or it would just become very muddled. So I think that there's something there about color that is just, it speaks to people, makes them happy, makes them lighter, maybe.
Lighter. I think you're right. I think it's like that, like the child piece, right? With like, as you were describing your son with the clothing and stuff like that. I think it really like harkens back to a place. So just as you're saying this, I'm curious, have there ever been times in your life where people have asked, well, you kind of had said earlier, people were like, maybe just use a smaller palette, but like in maybe some of your, like, are you self-taught or have you done like?
I went to art school.
Yeah. So what did that look like in art school? I'm curious, like what the outside world says about you, like being like, this is actually the palette I'm using.
Do you know, if you saw what I was doing at art school, you would laugh. I was drawing in black and white. Right. I mean, I was like the opposite of what I'm doing now. I started off with lots of big, bright paintings, and at some point, something just switched and I started doing lots of detailed drawings. And that was what I did at art school. And by the time I got to fourth year, my final year, I was starting to bring colour back. I think that I was ready for it. And I remember one of my professors saying, just as I was about to hang my degree show, like the big show that you do at the end of the year, the big one that you're marked on, and I was just about to hang it, and he was like, I think you should just paint the wall and not hang up any of your work. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was just like, that is horrendous. And I was like, you're going to mark my work in less than a week. Like, what does that say about what you think? And then I went away off to the pub. I had a drink, and then I had another, and then I sat there afterwards and I was like, do you know what? Screw it, I'm going to hang it all anyway. And I did, and I've never regretted it. But afterwards, I remember sitting there thinking, if I'm going to do this and if I want to do my art, I'm going to have to trust my own instincts rather than having everyone's outside perspective come at me. And since I've started using all the bright colours, one thing I did get at the beginning was, could you mute it down, or do you ever work in pastel colours, or even like just mute it down. So if I do landscapes, I will add bright pink to that landscape because I think it looks cool, and let's just add a fire bit there, and then a bit of orange, a bit of yellow. Yeah, why not add a bit of gold on that too? And I think that looks cool. But there are people that kind of go, could you just tone it back? And that's okay. Maybe that's just their taste. But for me, I love color. And I think if you're going to do something so bright and bold, you're going to have to trust yourself that it's what you want to do and how you want to do it.
There's like some serious wisdom there, right? Like trusting your own. There is, right? Like trusting, because you have to, like, when the people that I work with are often like they have intentions, they want to be creative, but then they start to try to create, and they start to like do that vulnerable expression, and then it feels too much, right? And they want to pull back. All those voices of all those people, or actually I've even worked with people who've like been in situations where they've had like been in art school and like somebody has just killed their creative spirit, right? And so the notion of like, yeah, there's skills and techniques and things that I can learn in school, of course, right? Like, of course there's skills that we can learn. But at the end of the day, trusting your like intuition, trusting your desires, and not doing it to please other people, but please yourself is kind of like, people are always talking about like how to find their own creative voice and all those sorts of things.
Oh,
and
gosh.
your creative voice is tied with your voice, right? So if you live in this world in a way that like is people pleasing and you have no boundaries or those sorts of things, then it's going to be really hard to do that in your art, right? Or it might be that you can only do it there and not do it there. But my thing is always there's an interplay back and forth, and we can kind of see it happening back and forth in our lives, right? That they're not separate like containers, that they inform one another, right? And so like the courage to just express yourself as you need to express yourself, and if that impacts other people, if somebody else is like, ooh, that's too much, that's kind of about them, right? It's not really, because your expression is your expression, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think the key thing is like, why would you let somebody else like control how you express yourself? You wouldn't let somebody else control how you wear your hair or what you put on your feet or how you decorate your house. So why on earth would you start paying attention to them when you're painting something that comes from like here within you? Because what you create is an amalgamation of everything that you experience. It's how you see the world. It's the colors you want to use that day. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe it's the song you're listening to. Maybe it's what you ate for lunch. Like, nobody else is going to create the same way that you create, because nobody else sees the world the way that you see it. So it's all well and good that, you know, that professor was sort of standing there going, I don't know if you want to hang that up. Well, that's nice. But at the end of the day, I really have to trust myself with this. And this is something I want to do for me. And that's great if you disagree with it. But, you know, let's just agree to disagree. I think particularly with art, and you were saying about finding your own voice, you have to completely trust yourself whenever it comes to expressing it. And it can feel really weird. You can feel like you're sharing something that is so vulnerable and so precious and so fragile, because when someone says something that's a little bit wounding, you close over. You don't want people to dislike what you're creating. So I think you have to have the self-confidence to create what you want to create, and then I think you have to have the balls to then go, and if you don't like it, that's fine too.
Right, right.
You have to have it, otherwise it doesn't work.
If you spend your whole, and it's like so much easier said than done. I know for a lot of people there's a journey around that, but I think that like even just what you were saying around like color and like which colors you want to use today and how that expresses for you. It's like in the art therapy world and that sort of thing, there's been lots of stories made up around like, well, red is anger and blue is sad and black is morose. And it's like, that might be the case. But if you, in my work, I ask people to look at palettes, and I'm like, okay, find a color that represents like what you're feeling right now. And when they're angry, it's not always red. Sometimes it's red. Sometimes it's like red and orange and we'll show it fiery, but sometimes it's like blue. Sometimes it's green, right? And so that notion of what the label is that the world has told you it should be versus what it is emanating from within you may or may not be the same thing. And so to just even start with like a palette and how you're feeling, and like think about like in this moment, what color am I, right? Am I this color? And then what is that? Play with that color and see what that texture is and kind of start. That's like one of the simplest ways to start doing what you're talking about around like being like, this is how I'm expressing myself. This is what it is, right? It's like, because then it's emanating from you and it's not you trying to replicate other things. And I say that, but there's also like, we have lots of symbolism in our cultures around like purity has different colors and that. So I get it. For some people that might be more, but maybe it's not for you. Maybe you express yourself using other colors and they mean different things to you, right?
Oh, definitely. I think that, especially when you were saying about different cultures, like I think that even if we would say that you don't believe that colors have kind of attachments to them, so you were saying, like red would be anger or blue would be sadness, as much as we might kind of go, oh no, I don't think like that, and I myself try not to, it's very difficult to get away from all that kind of subliminal messaging that you get bombarded with from the minute you can open a book, because it's just there. Whenever you see it's like that Disney film Up, Inside Out. That's
Inside Out. With the emotions in the head. Yeah.
And sadness is this little blue, like little sad thing. So you can say like, oh, I don't take it seriously, but of course, like all of that, it filters through. I think that the thing is, when maybe when you're creating is to switch off all of that kind of thinking in your head and to think, well, what does this color represent to me? And it can change on different days.
Yeah.
You know, some days I paint with blue because I am feeling a bit down and the weather's rubbish and I'm cold and I'm like all the blues today. But then there's other days when it's a beautiful blue sky and I've been out to the beach and it represents something totally different. So your colors can influence your mood, but it can also represent your mood in different ways. The same color can be lots of different things. It doesn't have to be this one thing and it can never shift ever again.
Yeah, right? Like being open to it shifting is like, and again, I would say that's part of the restoring or the around people's lives too, is right. Like being flexible, having a flexible mind. And that's the mindfulness part for me, right? Is allowing it to like take on a new form. I'll tell you a story about color with me. So I used to love brown, like earthy tones, like that kind of natural palette. I would like chocolate brown. I went through this like stage in my life where I was like, oh, that's me. I'm chocolate brown. When my first wedding, I wore like a chocolate brown dress, right? Like I was like, this is like, oh, I'm like chocolate brown, right? And when I think back to that like stage in my life, it was like, that was really connected to kind of who I wanted to be. There was like, that color really was very representative of me. And then I have like transformed since that part of my life. I've like had children. I've since been remarried. I don't even look the same. If you saw a picture of me when I was like, you know, in that brown chocolate wedding dress, you'd be like, that's you. And it's like, I'm a new person because I've transformed for many different reasons that I can't get into now. But now my favorite color is this like mustard yellow, right? And so like, as I've changed as a person, my color preference has changed. And I think when I look back is like, that brown was really about me like trying to like repress parts of myself, trying to settle, I had this like whole earthy thing where I was like, I'm just going to like be, and I'm going to root and I'm going to do this kind of thing. And that wasn't healthy for me. And now this like stage in my life, I'm like, I'm going to do things and I'm going to express myself and I'm going to kind of like, so I still do love brown, but I still love this like kind of mustardy orange color. And I see those as representative of different stages of my life. And who knows, in 10 years, I might have like a new favorite color, and that's okay. And when I think back about the brown or the orange or the yellow, it might be that my story about that changes, right? Because it's my color, my story around brown has already changed a number of times, right?
Oh, totally. And I think as well, like you were saying about as you change and as you grow, I think it comes from the self-confidence that you get as you change and as you grow. Like I remember when I was younger, I lived in blue jeans, blue trainers, white, lilac, all these kind of blue tones. And one, it was because I figured out it suited me. But two, like I kind of just wanted to blend in with everybody else. It was like my teenage phase when everyone was wearing these colors, and I was like, oh, I want to fit in, and I'll wear the same thing, even though I was kind of eyeing up something with sparkles and sequins that the others got. You know, I was like, no, nobody else is wearing that. I can't possibly. And I think that it comes with your self-confidence as you grow. So you kind of figure out, well, I don't really care too much what everyone else is doing. I'm going to figure out what I want to be doing. And I'm going to go and get those sparkly trainers because I want to wear them and look like a Spice Girl. And I think that comes with confidence and with age, and maybe even just with having like the whole kind of the caring about what other people think. Like for me, a lot of it comes back to not caring what other people think. If you're gonna embrace color, and if you're gonna embrace your self-expression the way you want to, you kind of have to not care what other people think. You can only really look at what you want to feel like, and if it makes you happy, then wonderful.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I think that's like the wisdom from this is that like somebody who's scared of color right now or doesn't know where to go, maybe just start with like buying that bright sweater, right? Or checking out, sitting down with a blank piece of paper and being like, not what colors did I think that she painted that was pretty that I saw or whatever, but like in this moment, what is the color that is like I am feeling called to, right? Like, what if we started with those baby steps around just thinking about color and restoring color and starting it from like internally versus like externally, what we think our color wheel says or what our instructor said or what that other person works in. Like, what if we just started from internally? I think that would be like a beautiful piece of wisdom to take away for people here.
Oh, definitely. I think that if you're going to, particularly if you're looking at how you want to create, like you have to switch out all that kind of external noise and you have to tune out all the things that people think about art, and you have to put your phone down so you're not busy looking at your favorite artist going, oh, they use a lot of pink. So not my favorite color, but I'm going to go for it today. You need to just switch it all off and kind of, you're absolutely right. Sit in that moment and think, today, I want to paint in yellow. Why do I want to paint in yellow? Because I've spent all day out in sunshine and it feels like painting in happiness. Great, off you go. Pick up that yellow. Off you go. Like there should be nothing else that's influencing you. And I think if you can get to that point with your self-expression, or even just having the confidence to make like a little bit of a marking that day, or like that is what you're aiming for. That is what you should be going for.
Yeah. Oh, Sarah, you're like a total inspiration. That's amazing. That's like, I think that what you're saying is really going to resonate with a lot of people around just trying to like.
I hope it doesn't sound like I'm waffling.
I think it's beautiful. Well, I think it's a perfect spot to end too, Sarah. I'm so appreciative. I think that the wisdom around like forgetting what other people say and starting with color is going to be like really resonate with people. So Sarah is like on Instagram. She shares in her stories a lot. She's like always showing like videos of you painting. So if you want to like learn more about Sarah and her like embracing of color, go to Instagram, go to her website. Sarah does like commissions. I know you do a lot of like painting commissions and you sell a lot of your art as well too. So I think it would be beautiful to have a piece of your art on the wall and have that symbolize like embracing color. Hey, like if you're somebody who's like looking to be like, I need to like, this is what I want to do. Like what a beautiful, because it would be like from your hands. I know I might have to buy a piece of your art and hang it. My symbolic reminder of not to suppress myself. So thanks so much, Sarah, for that lovely conversation around color and sharing so much of your own journey around like pushing back and expressing.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been such an interesting conversation. Like I've loved it. I think it's been fab.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, we'll check out Sarah's website and we'll check out the next video that we have in the series. Thanks, everyone.